Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep today into the May 2025 newsletters from the Pythoness Programmer, all about something she calls mindful automation.
That's right. We've gone through these sources, and our mission here is to really pull out the key insights. We want to help you figure out how to build digital systems that genuinely work for you. Systems that align with how your brain actually works.
Yeah, and it's quite a journey she maps out in these newsletters. Covers understanding your own brain, working with your energy, not against it, making sure your systems don't fall apart or stress you out,
Mhm.
and then sort of building your own personal playbook for it all. What really struck me, though, was the constant theme. Use the tools you already have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the core idea, isn't it? Mindful automation, as presented here, isn't about chasing the latest shiny app or adding layers of complexity.
Right.
It's really about adapting your current tech, the stuff you use every day, to actually reduce friction and cognitive load.
Yeah.
That feeling of having too much spinning around in your head.
Definitely feel that sometimes.
Yeah, and it's highlighted as particularly powerful for neurodivergent thinkers, but honestly, it's invaluable for pretty much anyone feeling a bit swamped by their digital life.
So where do we start digging into these insights? The sources really emphasize laying the foundation first. It's not about the tools initially. It's about understanding. Well, they've got this framework, YOU.
And what's interesting is how it really insists on starting with self-awareness. The why, that's for your unique brain.
Okay.
It's about really getting how your brain processes things. What tasks just drain you? What gives you energy? What are your natural thinking patterns? There's this great personal story in there about, spending years trying to find the perfect new database or system.
Oh, the eternal quest. I think we've all been down that rabbit hole.
Exactly. And the big realization was you often just keep coming back to the tools you're comfortable with, the ones that don't require a huge mental effort just to use.
Like a simple text file or...
Maybe a basic text editor or something like Google Tasks. The key insight isn't finding some mythical best tool. It's about mindfully adapting what already works for your specific brain. If Google Tasks is where your ideas land naturally, then build your automation from there. Don't fight it. The power is in adapting, not necessarily adopting something new.
That makes so much sense. You avoid the whole learning curve fatigue of a new system just for one small automation. Okay, so that's why. Then O is observe and optimize. Sounds like finding the sticking points.
Yeah, it's about actively noticing where the friction is in how you already work. Where do you get bogged down? What feels awkward or takes too much effort? And, just as important, tracking your energy. When you sharpest, when do you slump?
Right.
And really observing how different tools or steps impact your cognitive load. The sources suggest a really simple but powerful tip. Just keep a rough log for 1 week. Note your energy, what you were doing. It doesn't have to be fancy.
The simple log. Yeah, okay, I could manage that. And then there's something about visualizing this. Using Canva's whiteboard feature, I think.
This is where it gets really practical and honestly kind of fun. Use a tool you probably already have access to, like Canva or Miro. Something visual.
Okay.
Map out your current workflow visually. For a lot of people, just seeing it laid out like that reduces the mental load of trying to hold all the steps in their head.
Yeah, I can see that.
Use colors maybe for energy levels or types of tasks.
Yeah.
Add digital sticky notes right on the map where you feel that friction. Draw arrows to show how things connect. And this is key, where automation could potentially smooth things out. Seeing it visually helps spot patterns and opportunities you'd miss just thinking about it.
Okay, so why know your brain? O, observe and optimize, find the friction. Then you uncomplicate and understand. Is this where the actual automation starts?
Exactly. And the big insight here is start small. Like really small and simple. Pick one automation that solves a real nagging pain point.
Okay.
A classic example given is creating email snippets or templates right inside your existing email program. The stuff you type over and over.
Yeah. Like standard replies.
Right. It saves a surprising amount of time and mental energy, and you're using a feature that's already there. No new app, no subscription. It's mindful because it reduces effort with zero added complexity.
Simple wins, existing tools. I like that. Now, the newsletters mention make.com quite a bit. How does that fit the mindful approach?
Make.com gets highlighted because it seems to work well with these principles, especially, they note, for pattern-seeking brains. Its visual workflow builder is a big part of that. You can literally see the automation sequence laid out, which can lower the cognitive barrier to setting things up.
Right. Less like coding, more like drawing connections.
Exactly. And it's structured logging and pretty clear error handling, also align with this idea of creating calm, reliable systems you can trust. It's mentioned as a favorite in the sources because it's powerful, but also because its interface can reduce mental overhead once you get the hang of it.
Gotcha. And there's a really good quick tip from that first week, the 2-minute YOU check-in. Before you build any new automation, ask 3 questions. 1, does this actually reduce my cognitive load? 2, can I realistically maintain this? Thinking about energy, executive function, managing tasks and focus.
Right. Sustainability.
And 3, what's the backup plan if it breaks?
That backup plan question is so important. It ties directly into this real-world example shared in the sources about canceling a tool like repurpose.io to try and build something similar yourself, maybe in make.com.
Try to save money, I guess.
Yeah, look like a cost-saving move.
Yeah.
But it ended up needing so much ongoing tweaking and mental energy to maintain that the tool they already knew, repurpose.io, even if it cost more, was actually the more mindful choice in the long run.
Because it saved mental energy.
Exactly, which the sources argue is often your most precious resource. Sometimes the familiar tool is the better, more sustainable automation.
That repurpose.io story really highlights the mindful aspect. Okay, so you understand your needs, you spot the friction points. The next big theme in the sources is aligning automation with your natural energy. Energy-aware automation.
Yeah, and this brings up a key question. How do you even figure out your energy patterns reliably? The insight here is to look at data you might already be collecting.
Like what?
Check your habit tracker app, maybe Finch or something similar. Look at your calendar. Are there times you always feel drained after certain types of meetings? Health trackers, even just journal entries. Look for those recurring highs and lows.
This really connects to that personal story shared about needing a really slow morning routine. Time for morning pages, coffee, just easing in.
Right, and then needing a proper break in the afternoon.
Yeah, like a non-negotiable 3-4 hours for lower energy stuff, cooking, admin, whatever, which naturally led to splitting the main work into 2 chunks, maybe noon to 3 or 4 p.m., break, then back at it from 5 or 6 till 8 or 9 p.m.
And this is where automation can be really powerful for setting and protecting boundaries, not just doing tasks.
How so?
Well, the sources talk about using automation to create strict energy-protecting boundaries. Like imagine having your office lights automatically turn off at your scheduled end time. Yeah. You'd have to consciously, deliberately override it to keep working. It forces a pause, makes you decide if pushing longer is truly worth it.
That's a hard boundary.
It is.
Yeah.
And there's the personal boundary mentioned. No coding after midnight, because let's be real, those late-night genius coding sessions often mean a morning spent fixing things, which costs way more energy.
Okay, the no coding after midnight rule. Yeah, that feels pretty universal. So you structure your day around energy, then you use automation to help you leverage those high energy times better by removing blockers.
Precisely. The newsletter writing workflow example they give is perfect. Yeah. Blocking out focused time on your calendar, that's not just scheduling. That block can be an automation that prevents meetings from being booked then.
Okay.
And that calendar event could even trigger other automations, like pausing distracting notifications. Plus, automate the very first tiny step of a task, like automatically creating a new blank page in Obsidian for the newsletter draft when that focus block starts.
Reduces the friction of just starting.
Exactly. It lowers that initial hurdle and mentally cues you up for creation mode. You could even have it pull in some initial AI prompts automatically. The point is, often the most valuable automation isn't the most complex one. It's the one that creates the space for you to do your best, highest energy work.
That's a really powerful way to think about it. Okay, quick tip for this section. The energy-based automation schedule. Basically structuring your day conceptually. Maybe morning low ease-in, low-key tasks. First work block high deep work. Afternoon break, low admin, rest, recharge. Second work block high, maybe creative work or different focus.
And don't forget the subtle automations that help protect that structure. Things like schedulingtools.cal.com is mentioned that lets you automatically add buffer time before and after appointments.
Oh yeah, like 15 minutes padding.
Right. It's a quiet automation, but it stops you from having back-to-back calls that just drain your focus and transition energy. It protects your schedule without you constantly having to police it.
The newsletters also talk about if-then thinking, almost like a step before full automation,
Right.
or maybe an alternative sometimes. Using the newsletter example again, if I sit down to write, then I create the Obsidian page. If I feel stuck, then I review old newsletters. If I need a break, then I actually step away.
Yeah, the insight there is about maintaining momentum and, crucially, reducing decision fatigue during those high-energy times. You're not automating the writing itself, but you're automating the workflow decisions around it. It keeps you moving smoothly.
Got it. Less time wondering what should I do next when you're in the zone. And
Yeah.
that focus on workflow, it seems to lead naturally to where automation really shines, the repetitive stuff after the main creative work is done.
Spot on. You create this distinction, the human part, the writing, editing, strategic thinking, and the post-creation automation. This is where tools excel.
Like what kind of tasks?
Formatting content for different platforms, Beehive, Substack, wherever. Maybe generating raw ideas based on the content for human review. Not writing the final tweets or posts, but giving you starting points. Scheduling the sends, cross-posting, tracking analytics. Tools like Make.com, Zapier, IFTTT are mentioned for plugging your finished content into all those different channels automatically.
And they make the point that applying this thinking to daily life is huge too, like automating reminders for home stuff, changing air filters, scheduling the power washing.
Yeah, things that clutter up your mental to-do list.
Yeah, automating that stuff reduces that constant low-level hum of what am I forgetting and freeing up that mental bandwidth. It creates space for, connection, creativity, community, the good stuff.
That reduction of mental friction is definitely the through line, isn't it?
It really is. Okay, moving into the third major theme. Building resilient systems. This is all about error proofing because, as the sources stress, the best systems aren't super complex. They're the ones you can actually trust. Clear documentation, sensible error handling.
And what's really insightful here is the lesson learned about documentation they share. Trying to document absolutely everything just leads to overwhelm.
Been there, write tons of docs, never look at them again.
Exactly. So the key insight is shifting to documentation that actually works with your brain. And for many, that means visual approaches.
We're back to visuals. The visual documentation approach described uses tools, Canva, Miro again, create that visual map of the workflow, but this time you specifically mark the potential failure points.
Yeah, where could this break?
And crucially, document the why. Why does this automation exist? What problem does it solve? And what's the backup plan?
And to make this easier, there's a practical resource mentioned, a mindful automation documentation template. Comes in different formats like PDF, plain text so an AI can read it easily, Markdown.
Okay.
And it's designed to prompt those key questions. What does it do? Why does it exist? How do I know if it's working? What do I do if it breaks? The structure itself helps support your memory and makes troubleshooting faster.
That template sounds super helpful for making documentation feel less like homework. But what about the errors themselves? Error notifications can just spike anxiety for a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely. This is a huge point. The sources suggest creating calm error notifications. And the strategy is really elegant in its simplicity. Use a single dedicated Slack channel. They suggest naming it something like #logs for all automation status updates, success and failure.
So it's not pinging you constantly.
Exactly. You add a final step to every automation. Log its status to that #logs channel. Include key details, maybe use emoji reactions for quick visual scans, green check for success, red X for failure. You check the channel when you choose to, not when the system dictates.
That makes so much sense. Centralize it. Check it on your own terms. Reduces the noise.
Totally. And building on that is the idea of using an AI agent to monitor your automations like your Make.com scenarios and report their status into that same #logs channel. It could even offer context-aware suggestions if something fails.
Like a little helper watching the logs for you.
Kind of. It reduces the need for you to manually check everything and lowers that background anxiety about, is stuff still working?
There's a great example tying this together. Google tasks-make.com-slack. You capture a content idea in Google Tasks. That triggers make.com. Make generates some related AI ideas, sends those ideas to a different Slack channel, maybe #braindump ideas.
Right, keeping the logs separate from the content.
And then the crucial step, make logs its completion status, success or failure, back to that central #logs channel. And you can use free Slack for this, have updates from GitHub, your calendar, whatever, all funneling into that one #logs channel, one place to check.
And that AI agent monitoring, making reporting to #logs just acts like a helpful assistant, summarizing things for you, reducing that manual burden.
Love that. Okay, quick tip for week 3, the 5-minute documentation check. Before you call an automation done, take 5 minutes, ask, can I explain this simply? What's the backup? And critically, how will I know if it fails?
And they suggest a super simple template for this check. What it does, why it exists, how to check, point to the #logs channel.
Yeah.
What to do if it fails, maybe who to contact if you're stuck, and how the AI agent, if you have one, is monitoring it. keeps it focused and actionable.
Make.com and Slack really seem to be highlighted in the sources as a strong pairing for this kind of calm error handling. Webhook logging, detailed logs, custom messages, built-in retries, integrating with AI, and that simple central hashtag logs channel structure.
It's all geared towards building systems you can actually rely on without them adding to your stress.
Yeah, bringing it all home. The final theme from the May newsletters? Creating your personal automation playbook, making these systems stick.
Yeah, and what's interesting here is it circles back to simplicity and documentation that really supports your memory and helps you stay consistent over time. It's not about complexity, it's about sustainability for you.
And they give a really concrete, practical example, mapping out your brain dump processing workflow using that free Canva whiteboard template that was mentioned earlier.
That template sounds like a key resource because it integrates everything we've talked about. It's got blocks for basic workflow steps, sure, but it also has specific markers you can drag on for friction point and automation opportunity.
So you map your current messy process first.
Exactly. You have to see where the friction actually is now. The template also has space for visual energy mapping next to the steps. And it even embeds the YOU framework questions right there, prompting you to think why a step is hard for your brain. And then, for any step you automate, there's a dedicated automation documentation block right on the map. What, why, how to check, backup plan. Starting with the current workflow is absolutely the key first step.
Right. Map reality first, then automate. Okay, let's walk through the real-world brain dump example they use with this playbook approach.
Okay, so the overall why is simple. Capture ideas reliably before they vanish. The manual workflow probably starts with, idea occurs, but maybe that's a friction point because you forget or it's awkward to jot down. The automation opportunity is a faster trigger. So the automated step becomes, send a message to my Telegram bot. Simple action. That's the trigger. Make.com picks it up, creates the Google task, maybe asks an AI to brainstorm related angles, sends those ideas to the hashtag BrainDumpIdeas Slack channel, and critically logs its success to the hashtag logs channel.
So that one quick Telegram message sets off that whole chain.
Precisely. But here's the insight that apparently makes this really stick, the validation piece. The bot immediately sends a confirmation message back to you in Telegram.
The feedback loop.
Yes. It confirms the idea is captured, maybe adds a little positive reinforcement like great idea, or reminds you why capturing all ideas is valuable. This immediate positive feedback reinforces the habit of using the system. It makes it feel rewarding, encouraging you to capture even those fleeting thoughts. You start trusting it and building that valuable backlog.
That instant confirmation is brilliant. Makes it feel less like a chore and more like a win. And the sources suggest you can build these trigger systems using various messengers. Telegram bot with Make, webhooks for Signal or WhatsApp, maybe Slack commands or even emoji triggers.
Yeah, lots of options, but the core advice is key. Start with just one trigger system you like. Don't overwhelm yourself trying to set up 5 different ways to capture things. Reduce the friction of starting.
Simplify the entry point. Okay, final quick tip. The 10-minute automation audit. Every so often, take 10 minutes. Review your tools. What feels easy? What feels clunky? Check your energy. Where are your peaks and troughs? Where could automation really help? And evaluate your triggers. What kicks off tasks for you now? Which notifications are useful? Which are just noise? What common starting points could be automated?
It loops right back to that personal audit story mentioned. Realizing too much energy was wasted just switching apps to capture an idea. Building that simple Telegram bot trigger solved that specific friction. Result: less time managing systems, way more ideas actually captured.
Makes sense. Make.com plus messaging apps seem repeatedly highlighted as a potent combo for these centralized triggers that process stuff and confirm back to you.
Yeah, powerful and relatively accessible.
And just a quick note for listeners interested in connecting more on this, the sources mention an upcoming Python network Slack community launching mid-July. Sounds like a place to share templates, ask questions, celebrate wins, and also a new podcast noted on Substack specifically about curating AI notes.
Shows how these ideas are constantly evolving and being applied.
Okay, so we've really journeyed through the core insights on mindful automation from those May newsletters. Started with understanding your brain, the YOU framework. Moved into working with your energy. Then building trust through error-proofing and good, simple documentation. And finally, pulling it together in a personal playbook with smart triggers and visual guides.
And the distilled message from all these sources really seems to be this. Automation serves you best when it genuinely works for you, when it reduces friction, lowers that cognitive load, and does it by leveraging the tools and patterns you already have. It's not about adding complexity or trying to force your brain into a different shape.
So, as we wrap up, we've talked a lot about reducing friction to create space. Here's something for you to think about. If you implemented just one mindful automation, maybe starting with a simple trigger, smoothing out one nagging pain point, what could you create more space for? Deeper connection, focused creativity, community engagement, maybe just essential personal growth.
And if you want to dive deeper into all this, grab those free resources we mentioned, especially that Canva whiteboard template and the documentation template. You can get them by signing up for the Pythoness Perspective newsletter. Just head over to pythonessprogrammer.com/mindful-automation. That's pythonessprogrammer.com/mindful-automation.